Okay, welcome back everyone to Walking in Spirit and Truth. This is John Craig, and it's good to be back with you on another edition where we're going to dive in. We're going to dig into this amazing journey, this journey with Enoch. We're already into 88 chapters. Can you believe? I mean, I guess it's taken a long time to get to 88 chapters, but we're going to be in chapter 88, and it may take us a couple weeks to get through it because it's kind of long, but it's really interesting. And there's just so much that I'm looking at and I'm reading this. It's like, I think I've read this before, but I've read it in a different scenario. So why am I reading it like this when I've read it in the historical documents of the Torah? And then I was reading through, it's like, is this before or after? I don't know. We're going to dig into that. We're going to find out. We're going to see where this is going to take it. Hey, I just want to give a shout out to everyone that's been hanging out there in the chat room, waiting for me to show up. And Eddie and Tammy and Linda and Lou and Shannon, it's good to see you. And wow. All right. So, and if you've missed it, if you've missed this amazing journey, you can always go to the Life of Worship Ministries YouTube channel, and we have a whole playlist set aside specifically for this book of Enoch. And honestly, we have the book of Enoch, but before that was the book of the Giants, and which is kind of like it's kind of part of and not part of the book of Enoch, but there's a storyline that goes with that. It was an adventure, and so here we are in the book of Enoch, and it's going to jump into something. Like I said, you're going to say, I've heard that story before. First thing I want to say, like, share, and subscribe. We need to see some thumbs up. Go in there, punch that thumbs up button. We'd love to have you do that for us. Certainly would appreciate that. Life of Worship Ministries is located here in Amarillo, Texas, and we have services, and you all are invited, and we meet on Shabbat. And if you can't make it to Amarillo, where we would love to be able to just hug your neck and be part of our local congregation, we would love for you to join us online on Shabbat at noon Central Time. We have our Torah portion, and that goes for a couple hours, and then a little 1 hour break to our encounter service, where we have a days in worship and ministry, and then some type of message to inspire, to teach, to encourage. So we would love for you to have that, be with us on that. Oh my goodness, we have a lot to talk about. By the way, we certainly want to say this and give a shout out to everybody that's been a part of this ministry financially and as prayer partners. We certainly say thank you so much, because what you're doing is helping us take care of the bills that we have, because we continue to have bills, even though we're not meeting in a particular facility. We have to pay. We're still paying rent. We're paying rent to all of our ministry supplies and furniture and all of that. So, because it's all in storage until that next place opens up, we're taking our time. We're waiting for the proper time. But you guys are great, and I want to say thank you very, very much from the bottom of my heart. And if you're saying, well, how can I participate and be part of be a financial partner and bless the ministry? Well, I'm going to put up here on the screen our Life of Worship Ministries. Actually, it's www.lifeofworshipamarillo.org. You can just jump over there. There's a donate button. Click on that, and you can donate online. Or if you prefer to mail, there is a mailing address on our website. So, all right. Y'all ready to jump in and hit this next edition of Enoch? Well, where were we last week? Remember last week in Enoch, there was this Enoch is talking about these visions that he's having, and he's telling them to his son Methuselah, and he's saying, these things happen, and he even went and talked about. We even found out Enoch's wife's name. Wasn't it Edna? I think it was like Edna. Yeah, it was Edna. That was in chapter 84, verse 1. That is, before I married your mother, Edna. He had a vision back then. And he began to explain these visions. That's what chapter 84 and 85 and 86 and 87. And now we're going into 88. That's what they're all about. And he's giving what looks like in these visions. Of course, these visions and these dreams, how many times do they come in parables? I mean, think about this. Didn't Joseph interpret dreams? Didn't Joseph have dreams that they were parables? And yet they were telling about something that would happen sometime in the future. And yet it was in this dream-like form, symbolic, metaphorical language. But in it, we see within Joseph's life, the dreams were revealed and that Yahweh was preparing him. And some people say, well, he got so haughty and proud and was boasting about these dreams. And so he had to go through the hardships to see them fulfilled. I don't think that was actually part of the plan. I think he had those dreams. I think there was something that shook him to the core when he saw it. And yet his brothers and even his own father, they were the ones that chastised him. And when he was sharing his dream. Did you ever think that maybe he was just like, I had this dream and I'm telling you, it wasn't the pizza I had last night. It was just so wild. And this is what happened. Of course, the brothers got jealous. Jacob himself sounded like he got jealous. And when after telling about the dream where the sun and the moon bow down to him. But nevertheless, the dreams were fulfilled. Other people had dreams, wild dreams. Now think about this. I mean, Nebuchadnezzar, Pharaoh had these dreams. They had to get an interpretation for it. Why? Because they're heathen. And yet Yahweh was speaking to them about major things that were going to take place. Prophetic dreams. So, all right. So what other side? If you're on the side and your heart has been converted and you're following Yeshua and you have a dream, well, guess what? That's a good place to be. If you are just a pagan heathen and you're having a dream, guess what? Y'all may still be speaking to you. The Most High is going to be speaking to your heart. You're probably going to need someone to interpret for you, but it's meant for a plan and a purpose. Because what happened to Nebuchadnezzar? Well, he went insane for 7 years, like a cow eating grass, until he came to his senses and he got free, and he came and he worshiped Yahweh. So, just so you know, yes, Tammy, that's right. Yah even spoke through a donkey. Okay, he did. And I don't think that was the same as this same donkey as on Shrek. I think it was a donkey that we learn about within the scripture, right? Okay, so beware. Don't mess with the donkey. All right, just kidding. Okay, so we have this dream here, and what did he see? He saw these angels. He saw one angel coming down, and that one angel came down and just kind of perverted everything. And so 4 angels came down, and which one of those angels came and captured the one that perverted everything and threw him in a pit or a deep valley, or what it exactly, a valley narrow and deep, stupendous and gloomy, binding him hand and foot. That was Azazel. If we look at all of the characteristics of what was actually going on, we put it together with history. We put it together with all that we've learned within the scriptures, and even what we've read here in Enoch. We know who that is. We know who that character is. These 4 angelic beings, they were called stars. The stars that came down from heaven. Remember, right? Remember when we talked about stars? Stars are angels or messengers. Messengers are stars. There's this metaphorical language tying the two together. It ties us into the same type of the messengers, the angels over the congregations that we see in the book of Revelation. These were stars. These were messengers. These were angelic. They were bringing forth the message from the Most High in the book of Revelation, telling the congregation what's up. But also here, so we have the same type of thing going on in chapter 85, 86, 87, 88. That's where we are. Now that we've talked about that, let's go in. Let's read in chapter 88. If you're following along, I'm reading from the Sefer version, but you can be reading from a different version that has the book of Enoch. Probably has some words translated a little bit differently. I would love to have a book of Enoch with the Strong's numbers. Like what you have on eSword, where you get the KJV plus, and every word has a Strong's number, and then it can lead into deeper studies and understanding what the word is, and go from there. But one day somebody's going to do that for us. I mean, after all, we have a translation. Why not? Why not go back through and tell us, what is it in Hebrew or Aramaic or those parallels, so we can decipher the words and maybe get some more information, dig deeper. Well, I guess people say, well, the Book of Enoch is not one of the authoritative books of the 66 canon, 66 books of the canon that was approved in the 3rd century. And okay, some people put a lot of authority in the Book of Enoch, and I think there's a lot that is really ties in, connects a lot of the things we've already known, but just I think in our journey we've learned that, haven't we? And we've put those things, we've been connecting dots. It's like, I knew that, we were taught that, but where can we find more? Well, it seems like Enoch has kind of filled in some of those blanks. Okay, chapter 88, verse 1. It goes on and it says, then, so now he's talking about this vision that he's having, and he's saying, then, so there's more to the vision. And he says, then one of those 4 went to the white cows and taught them a mystery. Well, who are the white cows? Well, remember that we were talked about earlier in chapter 85. We were talking about these cows that were raised up, and there was these white cows and these black cows, and then like some of the cows were taken and something happened to them, and then they started producing these other type of creatures. And it's like, where did those creatures came from? Because we were talking about it was the connection of the genetic modification pre Genesis chapter 6. And so now, so we're still talking about the cows, but these are the white cows. Now we're not talking about like in terms of a racial sense, as in terms of I look at it as one that is righteous, not whitewashed brick like Levon, right? No, not like that. No, but somebody that's righteous, wearing the robes of righteousness. And it says, then one of the four angels went to the white cows and taught them a mystery. While the cow was trembling, it was born and became a man and fabricated for himself a large ship. Whoa. Okay. All right. So Lou, it's good to see you there. I see that. And by the way, Tammy, I didn't ignore your question. I'm just trying to think through what your question. Didn't they quote from it? Yeah, and then in the Brit Hadashah, they do quote from the Book of Enoch, and which gives us a hint that it's worth reading. Absolutely. So, okay, so a white cow is trembling, and it was born. Now, how can you have a white cow that is born and became a man? Well, let's keep reading, because this man probably has a name, but it's in this symbolic, metaphorical vision, but it's telling us something that is going to happen in the future. And so he said, I had this vision. This was before I married your mother Edna, Methuselah. And he's continuing. He says, then, and it says this cow was trembling. It was born and became a man and fabricated for himself a large ship. So why would a cow be trembling? Well, I think what it's really telling us is that this cow had reverence before Yahweh. It had the fear of Yahweh within him. And because he had the fear of Yahweh within him, when he came to that point in his life and the fear of Yah was within him, he was born. Maybe we could say, in the terminology that we've grown up with, as saying perhaps that's when he was born again. I mean, because I think every one of us has to have our own individual experience when we have the awakening and we recognize that Yeshua is truly the Messiah. And so it says, and became a man and fabricated for himself a large ship. So what man do we know fabricated for himself a large ship? Would that be Noah? I think it would be. So now we're going back to Genesis chapter 6 and Genesis chapter 7 about a man who built a large ship. And it says, in this he dwelt. And then it says, and 3 cows dwelt with him in that ship, which covered them. So they're in the ship. It's an enclosed ship. They're inside, and it says 3 cows. Well, what did Noah have? Noah had 3 sons. It's not to exclude his wives, their wives, Noah's wife, not at all, but it is specifically saying that gives us a hint. If you're going to be looking for somebody in the future, because if this is a prophetic vision, then you'd be looking for a man who has 3 sons. And they build an ark and they go inside it. And in this he dwelt, and 3 cows dwelt with him in that ship, which covered them. Verse 2, again, I lifted up my eyes toward the heaven, and I saw a lofty roof. Some would call that perhaps the firmament. The firmament. Above it were 7 cataracts, which poured forth on a certain village much water. Again, I looked, and behold, there were fountains opened up on the earth in that large village. The water began to boil up and rose over the earth so that the village was not seen, while its whole soil was covered with water. Okay, step back. Let's look at that. Could this actually go in and tell us these 7 cataracts? So we're talking about like rivers, waterfalls coming out of the heavenly realms. Okay, so the waterfalls are coming out of the heavenly realms, the water from above being poured out, and then the fountains of the deep opening up. And then it says but it uses a metaphorical language of the village. Well, what's the village? I think the village is the place where the population of earth lived. Now, was the population of the earth at that time spread throughout the entire globe? Or was it in one particular area or one particular continent? I don't know if we can really say. We can't really say that. But it is supposed to be representation, I think, of that man's dwelling upon the earth. I'd like to go back to the Hebrew, find out what that is. And so now we have that, and it rose over, the water began to boil up and rose over the earth, and that the village was not seen while its whole soil was covered with water. Well, we know in the Noah event that the whole earth was covered, and it covered any type of, if there's any type of city, any type of village, any type of land, whatever it might be, guess what? It was covered by water, right? Verse 5, much water was over it. Now, it's not just water that covered it, but it says much water was over it, darkness and clouds, kind of a stormy event. Okay, well, that's how I've always pictured that when the waters from above and the waters from below began to pour out, that there was also like huge inclement weather. Now, like Gil Broussard puts the Noah event together with the passing of this planet, what he calls Planet 7X, which would cause catastrophic climate change. I use that word. Catastrophic climate events to take place that because it affects the weather systems. Now, I mean, tell me why are the planets of Mars and Jupiter and Saturn and Neptune and all those out there, why are they experiencing a wobbling effect? Why are the storms on Jupiter changing? I mean, these are observable things that people are watching. There are things that are happening. Why is it that they're saying there's earthquakes on Mars? Now, which is amazing to me that they can actually tell that there's earthquakes on Mars, but there's been things going on these planets. What's disturbing them? Something must be pretty big that's passing by. Some would call this planet uh, a part of the binary system that our sun is part of. So there's two suns, but this is like a dark sun. And then we have the sun that we get light from and heat and summertime. And okay. So they're saying that he's saying is that that he thinks it lines up with the calendar of the passing of this planet 7X, this Nibiru, this whatever you want to call it. And which would bring the storms. It would mess up weather patterns and all that. And Noah and y'all's timing, everything coming together at the perfect timing, at the perfect date, and on the Moedims, where you can actually, look at the days entered, the days exited, and all of this and how they line up. They're not just random days. These are the days that y'all planned for it, and he put it on his calendar, and these are the days that y'all shook everything up. So, all right. So the water boiled up and rose over the earth, so the village was not seen. Verse 5, much water was over it, darkness and clouds. And then I surveyed the height of the water, and it was elevated above the village. It flowed over the village and stood higher than the earth. So, I mean, how much higher was it? Well, it would at least have to be taller than the highest roof line. But considering all that could have been taking place, I mean, one of the thoughts is at the time of the Great Flood is that the earth could have been impacted by a major meteor, which some think might have what formed the Gulf of America, as President Trump calls it now. I mean, Google Maps has changed it to Gulf of America. I think that's what they said they were going to do. Gulf of America, formerly known as the Gulf of Mexico. So formed by an asteroid, a meteor strike. Could that have been part of this big, huge, catastrophic event during the time of Noah? Would that not have caused a tumultuous waves and a lot of, debris and darkness and which would cause, putting all that moisture in there, like storms and effects and all? I think it would. I think it would. But going on, and it says, it flowed over the village and stood higher than the earth. Then all the cows, which were collected there, while I looked on them, were drowned and swallowed up and destroyed in the water. So in other words, only the one cow, the white cow that became a man, and the three other cows were in the boat. Of course, we know they had the wives. And so they were on the boat, but all the other cows that were on the earth, they didn't make it. The cows that were talked about in chapter 85. And they were swallowed up. They were drowned and destroyed in the water, but the ship floated above it. All the cows, the elephants, the camels, the asses were drowned on the earth, and all the cattle, nor could I perceive them. Neither were they able to get out, but perished and sunk into the deep. Again, now think about this. It says nothing about, why were these four cows, or this man and these three cows, why were they saved as opposed to, and nobody else? And, what about the animals in the ark? What about all that? Well, let's stand by and find some more. And then verse 9, again, I looked in the vision until those cataracts from that lofty roof, the firmament, were removed, and the fountains of the earth became equalized, while other depths were open. It makes me think of a big bathtub and the drain. The drain opened up, and so all the water could run off. And where did that water go? They say, if you've been listening to Mike from Around the World, but actually it's not Mike from Around the World. It's actually, I was listening to the guy who does Suspicious Observer, and and I think it was Dutch sense as well, talking about that 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 there are oceans of fresh water under the crust of the earth, and which would go and tell us that if there was a great pressure change, that it could force that fresh water out from underneath the crust of the earth. And what force? I mean, if a whole continent shifted and it broke open the crust of the earth, that and the pressure of that continent moving and shifting and maybe putting pressure on that underground freshwater ocean, I think it could put a lot of pressure and force that water high into the air, freezing if it went up high enough, and coming back down as ice and as a blizzard winter. I think it more so it'd come down as ice and just literally pile upon each other, kind of like how we see what happened to the mammoths. And the mammoths, caught, buried with food still in their mouth when they were discovered, undigested grass, right? We're going on, and it says into verse 10, into which the water began to descend. So the depths were open, the drain plug was pulled in the bathtub, and it began to descend until the dry ground appeared. The ship remained on the earth, and the darkness receded, and it became light. So all that gloominess and the cloudiness, and it all backed off. It was a year. It doesn't say it here, but we know in the Noah account it was 1 year. And wow, I just can't imagine. I mean, think about that. You're in an enclosed place for 1 year, never seeing the light. It sounds like a prison. I mean, there's many people that are like are in that position. The only light they have is artificial light. I mean, what type of light was in the ark? If it was shut up, it was closed up, there had to be light inside. Huh. Did they have enough candles? That would just not be enough. I think even all the animals in the ark would be disturbed. I think that even the circadian rhythm of the balance of night and day that our bodies need to have would be totally messed up unless there was light. You have to have light for the balance. Oh, anyway. Yeah, without form and void. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much what it's bohu vavohu. Yeah, tohu bavohu. That's exactly what it is. So and then the white cow. Okay, so darkness receded and it became light. Then verse 12. Then the white cow which became a man, went out of the ship, and the 3 cows with him. Get this. This is kind of an interesting little twist in the story, because now it describes the color of these cows. It says one of the 3 cows was white, resembling that cow. In other words, the cow that became a man, which was a white cow that became a man. And so one of those 3 cows was white, resembling that cow. One of them was red as blood, and one of them was black. And the white cow left them. Then began wild beasts and birds to bring forth. Of all these, I think this is where we get a little bit lost in this translation. Maybe your translation, if you're using a different one, might explain it better. It says because then began the wild beasts and birds to bring forth. Well, what's it mean to bring forth? Were they being brought forth out of the ship? I think that's what it is, even though it doesn't specifically say it, they're being brought forth out of the ship. But it says, they began to bring forth. Of all these, and now it starts to list it. Of all these, the different kinds assembled together. So in other words, remember how they were all brought in, unclean, 2 by 2, the clean or seven, yeah. Of all these different kinds assembled together, lions and tigers and wolves. Lions and tigers and bears, oh no. Okay, lions, tigers and wolves, dogs, wild boars, foxes, rabbits, and the hens are. It sounds like those are all unclean animals. The sisset, the avis, kites, the falcons, and ravens, more unclean birds. Then the white cow was born in the midst of them. And they began to bite each other. Then the white cow, which was born in the midst of them, brought forth a wild ass and a white cow at the same time, and many wild asses, lots of donkeys. Okay, then the white cow, which was born, brought forth a black cow and a white sheep. This is where it gets even more interesting. What's he doing? In other words, it's not like he's doing genetic modification. It's just that it's going through the process of birthing. That wild, verse 19, that wild sow also brought forth many swine. Wait a minute. Wait. Okay. Then the white cow, which was born, brought forth a black wild sow and a white sheep. That wild sow was also brought forth many swine. And that sheep brought forth 12 sheep. 12 sheep. Where do we know 12 sheep? Okay, now wait a minute. Stop for a second, because we're getting confused with all the different white cows and the bringing forth and the multiplication of all these other animals. Let's step back and take a look. And I think he's specifically talking about, well, I know this is where you're going, because we have Japheth, Shem, and Ham, right? And I personally am thinking that probably the white cow, because it's saying they began to bite each other. Then the white cow, which is born in the midst of them, brought forth a wild ass and a white cow at the same time, many wild asses. And I mean, it's specifically talking about this white cow, because the first white cow became a man. So I think this is the second white cow that was in the boat. Okay, that's why I'm trying to clarify this. And so it's the white cow that became a man in verse 1 in chapter 88. And he has 3 cows with him in the boat, a white cow, a black cow, and a red cow. Now the white cow got busy because he's breeding. He's taking all these animals and he's breeding them all. And out of all of the breeding, the vision, visions are, it kind of gets confusing, but if you're having the vision, it makes a lot of sense until you wake up, until you come to your senses and say, what in the world did I just dream? But when you're in the middle of that dream, you're like, this totally makes sense to me. Or sometimes you're like, oh, maybe this dream, I'm totally lost. I'm in my own dream and I'm thinking that I'm totally not understanding what my dream is about. Maybe it works both ways. But so he's having a vision, and so the white cow that was with him, along with the black cow and the red cow, is like a good shepherd, and he's multiplying all of these animals. And out of these animals, he brings forth a sheep that brings forth 12 sheep. Okay, a sheep that brings forth 12 sheep. So now we're jumping forward in time to where we see not Abraham, but we go to Isaac, who is a sheep, who has, and then we go to Jacob, the sheep who has 12 sheep. Okay, are you with me on that? And that sheep brought forth 12 sheep. It's got to be Jacob, because Jacob had 12 sons. So, but specifically he uses the metaphor that these are the chosen flock. This is the chosen flock, the lineage of the sheep, and they came from the white cow. No, I mean, but seriously, because they became sheep as we follow through. If we go, we go back to Genesis and we're following the line as it comes to Abraham and to Isaac and to Jacob. And what did Jacob call himself? When he presented himself to Pharaoh, he said he was a shepherd. And so this is kind of an interesting thought, is that the one who is being identified as a sheep who brings forth 12 sheep is really a shepherd who has 12 sons who are shepherds. That's how I'm interpreting it. That's how I'm looking at it. So this one sheep brings forth 12 sheep. Now, this is why it's metaphorical. We're trying to look at it. And it says, when those 12 sheep grew up, they delivered one of them to the asses, to the donkeys. Yeah, because 11 betrayed the one. And they, by delivering the one, Joseph, and metaphorically speaking, the donkeys, these asses, is who they sold it to. And again, those asses delivered that sheep to the wolves. So now we have the Midianites and the Ishmaelites, and who do they? And so he gets handed over from one to the next to the wolves. And who are the wolves? Well, that is the Egyptians. Joseph was sold to the Egyptians, but in this parable, it's a sheep that was betrayed by the 11 other sheep, the 11 other brothers. Again, those asses delivered that sheep to the wolves, verse 23, and he grew up in the midst of them. Because we know that at age 17, that's when he was taken from his father Joseph. Yeah, Ishmaelites and wolves are Egyptians. Interesting. Well, I would say it's the I would say that the asses are the Ishmaelites and I think it was the Midianites, and that the wolves are the Egyptians. That's how I'm looking at it, because there's a familial relationship. Okay, right. All right, we're on the same track there, Tammy. And it says, and he grew up in the midst of them. He grew up in the midst of the wolves. Then Yahweh brought the 11 sheep that they might dwell and feed with him in the midst of the wolves. Yeah, because Joseph goes down to the wolves, to Egypt, and then Yahweh brings his 11 brothers to the wolves, to the land of Egypt, and they dwell and feed with the wolves. They multiplied, and there was abundance of pasture for them, right? Because they were in the land of Goshen. But the wolves began to frighten and oppress them. Yeah, those mean wolves. Those mean wolves. Okay, but the wolves began to frighten and oppress them while they destroyed their young ones. Okay, right? They any boy, any male child under the age of 2 would be cast into the river. And it says, and they left their young in torrents of deep water, the Nile River. I don't know how deep the Nile is. We should look that up. I think it's pretty deep, especially in certain places. Now the sheep began to cry out on account of their young. Right? They did. They began to cry out and fled for refuge to their Adonai. One, however, which was saved, escaped and went away to the wild asses. Wait a minute. So one was saved. Who would that be? That would be Moses. That's one who was saved and escaped and went away to the wild asses. So it totally, missed his upbringing and all of that type of thing. And he's and now what is he doing? He is it says he went away. He escaped. Well, we know Moses went out in the wilderness, and to who? To Jethro, his father-in-law, and became his father-in-law, who was a Midianite, one of the wild asses. I beheld the sheep moaning, crying, and petitioning their Adonai. So like the ones that are left behind, that multiply greatly, well, they're having a hard time. They're moaning, crying, and petitioning their Adonai with all their might until Yahweh of the sheep descended at their voice from lofty habitation, went to them and inspected them. Now that reminds me of Ezekiel chapter 20, because Ezekiel chapter 20 gives us the same story and ultimately talks about how Yahweh will gather the sheep of Israel in the wilderness and have them all pass under the rod. And so it makes me think that it's really kind of along the same lines here, is that it says that Yahweh, until Yahweh the sheep descended at their voice from lofty habitation. So we know that Yahweh descending. It's not like he didn't hear and wasn't aware of what's going on. I mean, he told Abraham, this is what's going to happen to your descendants. And he said, descended to their voice from lofty habitation, went to them and inspected them So he's looking at them. He's like, I'm checking out my flock to see what's going on. And yeah, Bo 2.0. He called to that sheep which had secretly stolen away from the wolves, and told him to make the wolves understand that they were not to touch the sheep. Then that sheep went to the wolves with the word of Yahweh, and then another met him and proceeded with him. Okay. All right. So what happened? This is talking about Moses. And then we have the burning bush incident, and he's on holy ground, and he gets his commission, and he's sent forth. Shalach. He is sent back to Egypt. Said, okay, your time in the wilderness is over and done with. I mean, I came from up there on high, and I'm just tired of this. And you're going to go back, and no more. I don't know. Okay, you're going to go back, and you're going to do this. And he gets his commissioning, and in that commissioning, as he goes back, what happens? He meets another. Who's the other? Aaron. Aaron meets him, and both of them together. This verse 33 entered the dwelling of the wolves, and conversing with them, made them understand that henceforth they were not to touch the sheep. Yeah, good messengers. They took that pretty seriously. Afterwards, I perceived the wolves greatly prevailing over the sheep. They weren't listening, though. They heard the message. They weren't going to listen. And in fact, they're going to make it harder on the sheep. So afterwards, I perceived the wolves greatly prevailing over the sheep with their whole force, the weight of the government coming down upon the sheep. The sheep cried out, and their Adonai came to them. He began to strike the wolves, who commenced a grievous lamentation. But the sheep were silent, nor from that time did they cry out. What? Like, we're pretty much in awe, because how would Yahweh come down and strike the wolves? Well, we know it was the plagues. It silenced. I mean, it must have been so powerful. It's the sheep stopped crying out. They stopped lamenting. They stopped bemoaning, and they're like, "Whoa, this is bigger than anything we ever thought." But the sheep were silent, nor from that time did they cry out. Verse 36, I then looked at them until they departed from the wolves. Okay. I looked at them until they departed from the wolves. Sounds like Passover came and they got their marching orders and they left. And the eyes of the wolves were blind, who went out and followed them with all their might. But Yahweh of the sheep proceeded with them and conducted them. Okay, right? Cloud by day, fire by night. All his sheep followed him. His countenance, terrific and splendid and glorious, was his aspect. This is Beis Shalach. Now, right there, we're in this week's Torah portion. Beis Shalach. His countenance, terrific and splendid and glorious, was his aspect. Yet the wolves began to follow the sheep until they overtook them in a certain lake of water. I mean, seriously, does this not sound like, the Torah portions that we've been going through? Then the lake says, then that lake became divided. Yeah, the Red Sea parted. The lake became divided. The water standing up on both sides before their face. And while their Adonai was conducting them, he placed himself between them and the wolves. Well, there you go. The wolves, however, perceived not the sheep, but went into the midst of the lake, following them and running after them into the lake of water. But when they saw Yahweh of the sheep, they turned to fly from before his face. Then the water of the lake returned, and that suddenly, according to its nature, it became full and was raised up until it covered the wolves. And I saw that all of them which had followed the sheep perished and were drowned. Isn't that kind of interesting? Considering how we started out in chapter 88, and then about this cow that became a man, who we know is Noah, and he had a boat, and how there was a water event, and they were kept dry in the boat. and like here's another water event, and these guys, instead of being in a boat, they passed through on dry ground. And the water event, and as they got to the other side in a place of safety, the ark, right? Then the waters covered the wicked. I think that's really kind of an interesting thing. All right, so I don't know. There's kind of a little parallel right there between Noah and the Red Sea. Chew on that for a little bit. Maybe we can talk about that on Shabbat. Okay. But when they saw Yahweh of the sheep, they turned to fly from before his face. Then the water of the lake returned, and that suddenly, according to its nature, it became full and was raised up until it covered the wolves. And I saw that all of them which had followed the sheep, perished and were drowned. Goodbye, wolves, Pharaoh. But the sheep passed over this water, proceeding to a wilderness which was without both water and grass. And they began to open their eyes and to see. So in other words, they're like, wow, we really are out of Egypt. We really are out of the land of slavery. And they began to see that this was a divine event that took place. I think that's pretty amazing. They began to open their eyes and to see, and I beheld Yahweh of the sheep inspecting them and giving them water and grass. So in other words, he's feeding them and he gave them water. He's taking care of them. He delivered them and he's gathered them together. And the sheep was proceeding and conducting them. Well, who's the sheep that was proceeding and conducting them? That was Moses. And because he was the shepherd of the flock. And when he had ascended to the top of the lofty rock, Yahweh of the sheep sent him to them. And afterwards, so in other words, what happened? Moses met Yahweh up at the top of Mount Sinai, right? And he got the message. Yahweh sends him back down to the sheep. Afterwards, I perceived that Adonai standing before them with an aspect terrific and severe. Well, wait a minute. Okay, remember Moses? What is that? Moses was sent down. Yahweh said, you need to go. What's this sound that I hear? Moses, you need to go down to your people. You need to go check them out. I mean, it had been 40 days. The people were like abandoning him, felt like that he had abandoned them. So he sends Moses back, and then it says, afterwards I perceived that Adonai standing before them with an aspect terrific and severe, because the golden calf is coming up. This is when they're standing on the third day, on the day of Pentecost, on Shavuot, and they're standing there, and they get to see Yahweh face to face, and they're like, yeah, this is too much. That's when they were fearing and trembling. That's exactly. They weren't able to stand before Adonai or to look upon him. Then that sheep who conducted them went away and ascended to the top of the rock. Then the sheep began to grow blind and to wander from the path which he had shown them, but he knew it not, because Moses went to the top. It was after that, after they rejected Yahweh. Remember what happened after they rejected Yahweh? Now in this, Enoch was shown that they went blind. In other words, they lost their ability to see Yahweh, the ability to see and to perceive, to ra'ah, to have the vision that Yahweh was giving them, that they were seeing what he wanted them to see him face to face and all of his goodness and all of his glory. And they rejected that. And so in the rejection, they go blind. There we go. Set that record straight. When the sheep began to grow blind and to wander from the path which he had shown them, but he knew not. But he knew it not. They didn't even know they were blind. Their Adonai, however, was moved with great indignation against them. And when that sheep had learned, okay, Moses, when that sheep had learned, he descended from the top of the rock, and coming to them, found that they were many which had become blind and had wandered from the path. Why did they wander off the path? Because they were following the golden calf. They lost it. As soon as they beheld him, they feared. As soon as they beheld Moses, the sheep that came from the mountain, as soon as they beheld him, they feared and trembled at his presence and became desirous of returning to their fold. Then that sheep, Moses, taking with him other sheep, went to those which had wandered, and afterwards began to kill them, and they were terrified at his countenance. Then he caused those which had wandered to return, who went back to their fold. Verse 60. Okay, so what did he do? He took, the Levites, and they went and killed the wayward ones, the blind ones. Verse 60. Boy, we're out of time. Okay, we're going to pick up next time at verse 60 because we're out of time. Very interesting. There's more to go. There's a lot to go. And it continues to follow all in this vision that Enoch had. Isn't that amazing? Wow, pretty crazy. Pretty cool, actually. Well, stay tuned. We'll be back next time, y'all willing. Hope you had a great time. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you then. Shalom.
If you missed today's show or want to watch it again or want to tell someone where they can watch this episode, go to lambnetwork.tv where you will find this show and all the other live Lamb show archives in the on-demand section of the website. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to tell someone about the Messianic Lamb Network. We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussions, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the lambnetwork.tv website. I'm Sandi Craig, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.